And with the same level of suppression in other countries as well?
Yes.
But the Taliban is on Twitter, right?
Like, I always think of like, hey, Mr. Taliban, tally me a banana. Hey, Mr. Taliban.
I mean, there's definitely some people on Twitter that are...
Daylight coming, I want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the point is, from my standpoint, that is that X, FK, Twitter should represent the sort of collective consciousness of humanity.
Welcome back to Posting Through It. Thanks for joining us another week. I'm Jared Holt.
I'm Mike. Eric Weinstein, the right-wing economist and mathematician linked to Peter Thiel through his role overseeing Thiel Capital, a so-called intellectual dark web commentator, took to Elon Musk's X on April 16th in response to what he perceives to be Nazis populating it. The platform is trending towards becoming unusable for normal humans. And yes, those of you with an IQ over 50, he wrote. Not a big fan of Weinstein, typically, but the trend he mentioned is something that many of us have noticed anecdotally while surfing X, the everything app. The political content on there has started to take a darker turn in coincidence with Trump.
So on this episode, we are doing a little look at X and having a talk about a few of its key personalities, just kind of as examples of the tone of the site right now. 3 years on, X is no longer Twitter. It's definitely its own app, even if it looks mostly the same and has many of the same elements of its predecessor, although that seems to be changing all the time. But we've brought back our dear friend, Hannah Gais, to help us sort through it. Hannah still uses X, as do I, quite reluctantly. But how are you, Hannah?
I'm good. I mean, personally, I really love having an app that's, I guess, not Telegram, where I can log on every day and interact with militant neo-Nazis who send me gifs of pig shitting, grown men who post photos of themselves in front of cherry blossoms, telling Elon Musk that he is loved, the Taliban, and so much more. It really is the everything app.
Also on the pod is Stephen Monacelli, who seems to be mostly retweeting stuff on X now. Am I correct in saying that? I haven't seen you post since, the beginning of the month. You're mostly on Blue Sky, am I right?
Yeah, I primarily only use it now to repost and to monitor Nazi accounts. None of my posts seem to really reach anybody anymore, so it doesn't seem worth the effort.
Well, Stephen's done some really great reporting since the start of the new Trump administration, and he co-bylined a story about a guy named Jeffrey Martin, who is Canadian, but maybe not quite fully Canadian. Maybe he's part Canadian, behind an account that calls itself Captive Dreamer. I keep calling him Captain Dreamer.
You did it again. Okay, so listeners,
I keep going.
Critical context here. Mike loves making fun of this Captive Dreamer account, and we'll get into him in a bit. He loves to do it by calling him Captain Dreamer or Captain Dipshit sometimes. And true. So you may hear Mike say Captain Dreamer over and over again throughout this episode. Freudian tick.
I get bothered by any accounts that have like an avatar that's not their face and a name that's not their face, but that just kind of act super serious. Like it's almost like a Muppet yelling at me about politics.
What Mike is actually saying is that he's really, really disrespecting veterans in the posting wars.
The meme wars. Oh my God. So let's go back to exactly 3 years ago this month, April 14th, 2022. Elon Musk makes an offer to purchase Twitter from Jack Dorsey for about $44 billion. On April 25th, 2022, Twitter accepts the offer. The two sides engage in months of entanglements, financial entanglements over its valuation, quibbling. Elon Musk is claiming that it's actually worth less because it's full of bots. But at the end of the day, in October 2022, Elon Musk takes full control of Twitter, and in a video stunt that he publishes to the app, Musk carries a bathroom sink like you would buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever hardware store into Twitter headquarters, captions it, "Let that sink in." A number of changes follow. In April 2023, Musk starts stripping away verification badges and moving to this pay-to-play Twitter Premium, X Premium that exists now. Around this time, Musk is also playing with the algorithm in the form of the For You tab, which is a content recommendation system. You can listen to our chat with Renee DiResta about how those work, but it essentially takes content that algorithmically it thinks you want to see, or what content Elon Musk wants you to see, depending who you ask, and puts it into this For You tab. And then in July 2023, Musk changes the name of Twitter to X. The whole site past this point just gets rapidly overhauled, particularly the political corners. Liberals and leftists start to exodus the site. Racist accounts, conspiratorial accounts, and the whole sort of underbelly of right-wing political media, they start buying these verified badges and dominating the For You tab, because with that badge, they get increased visibility. X loses millions of dollars from advertisers and really leans heavy on these paid accounts and these subscriber services, and I think resultingly continues even to this day to reconfigure the website around catering to them and trying to incentivize more people to pay for a website that throughout its many-year, more than a decade-long history was free.
I'm curious how you guys feel about this, but for me, that "let that sink in" moment was actually like that was a sort of the high watermark of Elon Musk as a kind of a shitlord, whatever, where he had the capacity to really scare people, I think. And also he like the peak of his fandom. And I say that just because if you look at him since, every step he's done since, the guy has really taken on more and more pain, right? Like his companies, everything. He didn't have all these investigations about all his weird, alleged issues with his penis and like stuff around his many, surrogate women or whatever. Seems like since then it's been a pretty bad fall for the guy.
I mean, I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I mean, he was spending time in the White House. He had Doge. I mean, at the end of the day, it led to him being more powerful than he ever has been, and richer too, for that matter.
Yeah, in a way. But, if you believe what he says about his current situation, he's facing a lot of pressure from investors at Tesla to basically step away from his political role, and he's claimed to be reducing the amount of his time allocation that he will be doing to Doge, which could just be a way of sidestepping the limitations that are placed on him as a non-appointed government employee of that level. So, on the one hand, yeah, he certainly has perhaps more power than he's ever had before. But on the other hand, the amount of political capital he's had to spend to get there is enormous and is not without reputational damage to him.
And financial damage. I mean, so much. Elon Musk is like the wealthiest person on the planet, right? But so much of his net worth is because he owns a metric shit ton of Tesla stock and can leverage loans and business arrangements against the idea that that stock will be relatively stable. And since he has grown more politically active, and, we have gone from that era of New York Times articles being like, what does Elon Musk really believe? And everyone was like, it's racism, mostly. And then today, where I think the question has been fully answered at this point.
Everybody's points are right. Like it's true that he has like increased political power and political access. I just sort of meant like that moment when he comes in with the sink, he seemed like sort of invulnerable. Like it was like he seemed popular almost, right? It almost seemed like he was like, 55% of the population would think he was cool. And he was carrying all this 4chan weight behind him, right? Like, and now he's just like a completely loathed like individual. Like I'm just on a personal level. So yeah, when I think of like the new version of X, the guy who comes to mind first for me is like Jack Posobiec, because if you remember the original iteration of Twitter, Jack was always like a weird figure in that he was like verified. He's a verified guy who posted all kinds of like fascist stuff and like all this like disinfo and all this. And then there was the whole thing is like, why was this guy verified? And now if you look, he has like 3 million followers and the tone of the site has almost completely become a lot like him. Another person who's like that is Libs of TikTok, who now has like 4 million on X. That's a massive following for somebody who, if you recall, like 2022, the whole thing was like people like stumping to try to get that account taken down. I mean, I don't know if everybody remembers that. And then there are all these figures who were once banned from the original Twitter. Andrew Tate, Laura Loomer, Tommy Robinson, ALX, Milo Yiannopoulos, DC Drano, Nick Fuentes. Am I forgetting anybody? Who else is?
I mean, Andrew Anglin was back there for a minute and then got banned.
That's right. Yeah.
That was real
Anglin.
OG. And then this is one for the heads. Mike Penovich and some of the right stuff guys had come back to Twitter, but they haven't had as much opportunities to get much traction.
So like for readers, so for
people
listeners who don't
this podcast.
So people for listeners who don't know who those guys are because they're very like SPLC centric guys, they're like those are like straight up neo-Nazi. Anybody else remember anybody else who's been banned back?
Lucas Gage.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
God.
Italian American represent. Doing the hand signal. Former chairman of National Youth Front, virulent neo-Nazi online. He's been banned and come back and then been put in suspension again for breaking the rules. And, you mentioned Laura Loomer as well. There's a recent piece in the New York Times of all places where she was held up as an example of someone who, after openly feuding with Elon Musk on the site, has had this massive drop off in her engagement, reflecting a sort of like patrimonialist approach that Musk takes towards moderation and, preventing people who he personally dislikes from having reach on his site.
That's amazing. Gage is a great example of kind of the current tone of the site. So like for people who don't know Gage, like he's like just virulently anti-Semitic. That's like his whole thing. It's just like a huge drumbeat against Jewish people.
He says, "Mamma mia, that's a Mossad."
Yes.
Just kidding. It would be funny if it was like that, but instead it's just like the type of anti-Semitism that just makes your skin crawl.
Yeah, it's like it's really focused. It's like laser focused on Jewish people. And he just does massive numbers on the site.
I think he had New Jersey Homeland Security or something. It was like the state organization, not federal. Visit his house at one point because like there are allegations of threats, and he was just going off in his videos that he would post to X. And I think that was around the time he took a break or something.
He should take a break forever. But yeah, it's I think the point we're getting at is like with these transformations under Elon Musk's ownership, not only are a lot of old sort of Twitter players back in the mix, also what Stephen was mentioning, this manipulation of the algorithm and recommendation engines seemingly to the personal whims and wills and discretion of Elon Musk as a person has also created this sort of new hierarchy of right-wing influencers. And you have like new people at the forefront. You have people that were prominent, now ultra prominent, and it changes fairly frequently. As a platform, X still carries some of the same things it did when it was Twitter in a slightly more damaged form. You can still go there for sports news, music news, celebrity news, but almost everything that would fall into the vaguely political bucket, it has to get the blessing of Elon Musk with his, what today is close to 220 million followers on the platform.
Caveat that some are bots.
I'm a bot. I'm definitely a bot.
Elon Musk said he was going to get rid of the bots, so I think there's actually zero, Mike. A little fact check for you. So within Elon Musk's orbit, like some people have turned into almost micro celebrities on the website just through engaging with Elon Musk. And it includes this conglomeration of like weird cryptocurrency industry type guys. Like there's this one person who has become sort of a new media star in the Musk X era named Mario Nawfal. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
He invited me onto his one of his chats once to talk about like my criticisms of Elon Musk. That was like in somewhere probably in 2022 or 2023 before I left the site or stopped posting on it. It's just he hosts those spaces, right? Like that's basically that's the currency.
Yeah, he invited me on to debate Nick Fuentes, and I said I would almost rather do anything else with an hour of my life. And then his takeover's also been hugely beneficial to people like David Sachs, who are in this Musk-Trump tech right MAGA crossover orbit that has produced people like JD Vance, right? Who, Mike, you have in the show notes, he, in all caps, he posts like a guy with no job. Would you like
it's
to?
True.
It's literally true, though.
JD Vance?
Yeah, he just posts like a guy who has no job. Like it's not that it's not even, the idea that it's not becoming of the office is like, we're done with that already. Everything has been toileted in this country. But like, I don't know what he does as vice president exactly. Like they just put him in charge of like, what was it? It was charge of tariffs, which means that Trump hates him. But I mean, he basically posts like it almost seems like he's posting to try to seem like he's posting alongside Jack Posobiec and people like that. I think he just recently followed Curtis Yarvin. He just posts like a sort of a fashy shit poster, and like that's kind of his thing, and like responding to people, just responding to random people like Jesse Singal or whatever.
Yeah, the fact that he basically is just like, and it's during the day too. Like he would like presumably he'll be at the White House or something, or on some kind of like official vice presidential business, and he'll be tweeting. It's basically like, I mean, it's like Veep. If you had in the middle of Veep, she basically just sat down and started getting angry at people online. Like, perfect plot line.
If you remade the show, I think that's what she would be doing that.
Oh yeah, totally. She would be in some group chat that would then get doxxed and then like end up in Politico.
She'd be cool like Neera Tanden. Anyway.
Stephen, what are your thoughts on how JD Vance uses X? Because he interacts with a lot of people that have, wound up being subjects of your stories. I mean, I think even just him interacting with them makes them newsworthy, right? But what's your take? I mean, just who he's interacting with. We'll talk about Captive Dreamer in a second, but I just generally, I'm curious, like,
whether it's JD Vance directly running his own account or some staffer doing it for him, I'm not exactly sure. But based on just a casual observation of the accounts that he tends to follow and or interact with, it seems like it's like he follows a new neo-Nazi account every few weeks, maybe in a sort of slow drip way so that other people don't notice. But Captive Dreamers is only one of them that myself and me and others have noticed that JD Vance is following. And that does seem to be a source of information for whatever reason. I don't know why else a vice president's Twitter account or X account would choose to do that unless they found those posts to be interesting or informative. I don't want to read into it too much and say I know what the reason is, but I could tell you that, if I were to follow an account like that, it would be specifically so I could look into potentially who's running it. Not that I think that their account is particularly informative or, something that I believe in. So it is a bit of a mystery, but there's a pattern, I think, that anyone could observe if they want to.
So that's what politics are like on X now. And that is apparently what Elon Musk would like to see.
I mean, he also is, he's kind of promoting things to people that were smaller, that are becoming bigger. And like among those is like, AfD in Germany. He's helped to really make them a really dominant force in Germany simply by promoting them. And they were not like the most popular party in Germany. And there's certain polls are showing that they're getting closer to that space. And then you have figures like Salvini in Italy, for example, extreme far right figure, kind of quotes Mussolini or paraphrases him. He's another one promoted by Musk who's getting like more and more attention recently. So it's like his impact through his feed is pretty significant in terms of steering the country in an authoritarian direction. So other people who are kind of big, as like one of them is Ian Miles Chong, who is a Malaysian man who
Individual of Malaysian descent.
not a Malaysian American is an important thing to say. The guy has apparently never left Malaysia. He gets promoted a lot by Elon Musk, and he was always kind of a hanger-on the previous iteration of Twitter, but he's like kind of a big star now. Hannah, your thoughts about Ian Miles Chung, if you have any you'd like to share?
God, this had to be like 2.5, 3 years ago at this point. But at one point, you and I were talking about doing almost a joke SPLC investigation, which is, I think, how the best investigations turn out, about how old he was. And going through a bunch of databases, we actually could not find an answer. But he's in some major financial data leak. The Panama Papers?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Wait, what? What?
Oh yeah, he's in.
Yeah.
He's in, like, hold on.
While you're looking that up, I'll fill people in on a little bit of history about Ian Miles Chung. Ian Miles Chung is a political blogger who became prominent during Gamergate. He would freelance articles. He would post his own articles. He was active online before that, but that's really where his name started to pop up, as doing sort of quote-unquote ethics in gaming writing. When the Trump movement gained steam, he would continue to sort of freelance pieces out. My personal favorite column of his was at Milo Yiannopoulos' website before it was defunct. He had a column called The Incel Corner. What am I missing here?
Oh, God. I don't know if I want to go down the rabbit hole of his comments about the age of consent.
We can always make time for his comments about the age of consent.
Yeah. So 2023 MSNBC News, quote, in since deleted tweets, Chung repeatedly said the age of consent is too high.
In the U.S. or Malaysia?
Wait, I'm looking up the Malaysian age of consent.
So
Both,
there's
perhaps?
one 2014 tweet that I was able to pull up here on Google. It says the age of consent is 16 in most European countries. It's 18 in the U.S. for some reason.
It's terrible. And considering this is a guy who wrote for Incel Corner, he did. It was Milo Yiannopoulos' website, and there was a little thing called Incel Corner, and Chung was the author there for that. What was it called? Like Dangerous or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah. So there's that.
Lovely.
Another person who's like a high volume poster on there, Stephen, I know you have some thoughts about this gentleman, is a person who goes by the name of Cat Turd. We recently discovered that this guy posts, he admitted, like the I think you should leave skit, like he admitted, spends 12 to 15 hours a day posting on X. 12 to 15 hours a day. All right. So, Jared, if you could read his post. This is from just a week ago. This is a hot April post.
So Cat Turd's real name is Philip Buchanan. He is a thrice divorced Florida man. So I am going to put on a little bit of Southern twang, see if I can dig that out of the recesses of what's left of my Arkansas upbringing. The last 3 or 4 weeks, the algorithm has been so bad on X. It's hard to justify putting 12 to 15 hours a day on here and busting your ass when you get just throttled to hell and back for no reason. I've talked to hundreds of large account creators, and it's the same for all of them. None of them understand this insane strategy. It makes no sense throttling the hell out of everyone when X should want their advertisers getting as many views as possible. I just don't get it. I know everyone understands what I'm talking about because it's happening to everyone.
Thank you for that.
God,
That's right.
I hope that never comes out of my mouth again.
So
That was beautiful.
we need to keep going, but I just want to just again say 12 to 15 hours a day. And I really think that like that, those are the people who are, when you see these people and you're like, how does libs of TikTok, like, how is this even a thing, right? Like, she's not charismatic, she's not like, she doesn't put her looks forward and stuff like that. She's not about that. She's only about posting. How the hell could she have this kind of audience? The answer is they just sit over the fucking app 24 hours a day.
And it's not just clicks on X either. Like, for some of them, this is resulting in like real political access and influence.
One account that I recently looked into and wrote about, we've mentioned Captive Dreamer, aka Jeff Martin, has gotten a lot of attention from some pretty significant people. So he's not just screaming into the void and only speaking to his neo-Nazi audience. He's followed by J.D. Vance. He's also had other prominent figures of the second Trump administration interact with him. So Elon Musk has replied affirmatively to some of his posts, or one of his posts, when the Captive Dreamer had asked whether the United States Agency for International Development was propping up the global left, to which Elon Musk basically said, yes, agreed. And then we've also got the case of Ed Martin, the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, who has his own colorful backstory. And Captive Dreamer had, basically targeted a particular ex-user. Some of your audience may be familiar with him, Will Stancil. Basically, Captive Dreamer was trying to say to Ed Martin that this person should be investigated for threatening Elon Musk. And that's something that Ed Martin had said he would do. And he would, go after anybody who was threatening Doge or intervening in their activities criminally. And so Ed Martin responded, "Thank you, noted," to this lovely, lovely little post. So it's not just, random people on the internet. Apparently pretty powerful and influential people are following these posts, or these posts are appearing in their timeline and they're taking them seriously.
For people who don't know who we're talking about when we're talking about this guy who is really influential, this started as a pseudonymous account, and you would primarily see his avatar show up, and it was like this insufferable avatar of like David Koresh's face with a MAGA hat on, right? It's like,
and David Koresh was Waco, right?
Yeah, he's the Waco, Texas cult leader. It has this kind of super serious pseudo-intellectual energy from jump when you see it. Like, it's just sort of like, yeah, here we go. And he kind of becomes like a big fixture in 2024 during the election, and partly because J.D. Vance follows him, right? I mean, that's kind of like how I took the entire year off to work on my book and was like really not online during that time. But even I would see him when I would go just to scan for news. I would see this guy's thing come up. So how would you kind of describe his posting style? Like, what is this guy? And then I just want to work back after that to just like how you found out who he was, how you and your partner found out who he was. But first, like, what is the posting style like? Like, what is this guy like?
When you're talking about online neo-Nazis, anonymous ex-neo-Nazis, there's kind of a spectrum of posting styles. There's the just outright pro-Hitler, I'm an Aryan, white supremacist type stuff. And then, as you kind of go in the other direction on the spectrum, it becomes a little more coy or coded in its language. So this guy, he puts out a lot of stuff that is pretty clearly racist. So, quote, Arabs are low IQ and extremely low in impulse control is a post of his. But he tends to lean towards sort of the coyness or the trolling style of posting. And occasionally that mask has slipped. So there are some deleted posts we had found where he said, straight up, quote, I believe in Hitler and National Socialism, in total N-word death, etc. That's obviously quite extreme and quite blatant. But if you follow his post pretty closely, you can actually see that he kind of gets into these disputes or criticizes people who he finds to be inartful in their posting styles. So, he makes fun of certain groypers.
Groypers, of course, are the followers of Nick Fuentes, for people who don't know. Yeah.
He's made posts, suggesting that people who are always harping on the quote unquote JQ or the Jewish question, which is, a common discussion topic in neo-Nazi and white supremacist circles and has been around since, the original Nazi regime. He is clearly aware that there are certain ideas and concepts that are beyond the pale or considered, abhorrent by, polite society or enough people in just general society that you can't lead with that stuff. So you have to lead with other stuff.
Right. He's trying to mainstream whatever this kind of, if you want to call it fascism, this sort of right-wing authoritarianism that the new Trump era is for. That's what I've seen. Like, is essentially that he's mostly sucking off Trump and doesn't really have any other gear, but he does it in this kind of stylized way. And Hannah, I'm just curious, like, before we find out how Steven unearthed this account, what is your take on like what this guy, this guy's style of post and like, how he kind of fits in on X?
I mean, he very much reminds me of kind of like this weird bastard child of the alt-right. Like, I remember starting this work back in 2016, but I also had the day job of doing social media for the Baffler. So I was, in fact, on Twitter a lot and getting paid for it like cat turd. I don't know what that says about me. And that was kind of like the heyday of the alt-right coming around Trump and also really their heyday on Twitter. And a lot of this very much reminds me of that. I guess I would maybe complicate the description of him a little bit. I don't know if I would necessarily call him a straight up neo-Nazi because I see him as like a little distinct from someone like Blood Tribe or National Socialist Movement, American Nazi Party, kind of traditional neo-Nazi groups. But he is very much this, like, is taking a lot of what the alt-right did and was saying in 2016 and recycling it for this new audience. And the biggest distinction between now and 2016 is very much like the alt-right was very much its own thing that was cozying up to Trump. Whereas now there's very much this movement online that is with Trump, that is adjacent to Trump. J.D. Vance is following this guy. Like, it has more influence within the right, within the mainstream right, but one of the drawbacks that kind of comes from it that is that it isn't really its own independent entity.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephen, I want to get your take on this. Captive Dreamer, he has, at the time of recording, just above 80,000 followers. And while that's certainly nothing to shrug off, J.D. Vance is following him. Elon Musk is replying to him. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on, any theories as to why he's been particularly influential, even though his account is not huge like something like Libs of TikTok. It's clear that something he's doing is like allowing him to punch way above his weight. And yeah, Stephen, I'm just curious if you have any theories. I imagine that's probably part of what made you and others want to investigate the account and figure out what was going on here.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I think part of it is, just a certain level of efficacy in his posting. The Haitian panic around Springfield really took off and became this massive thing. He wasn't solely responsible for it, but he did play a role in seeding it and, really amplifying it and pushing it. So to a degree, it could be that, oh, hey, this is an effective poster who, is putting stuff out that could be lifted up and weaponized as a part of a political program because it stuff like that was really touching nerves within their base and was getting a huge response in the media. There could be behind the scenes connections that we're unaware of as well. I can't really speak to that. That's purely speculative.
Always imagine if you can DM somebody, like, why not? I mean, we don't know, but I'm just saying if somebody's a DM away, you can't rule it out.
Right. Correct. So, it's not entirely clear, but, this guy, his background was in classics, and he kind of styles himself as more of an intellectual than your average far right poster, and has a Substack where he's translating, obscure old fascist texts and publishing them. So, it could be that he is able to do two things at once. He's able to infuse that sort of old fascistic history into popular consciousness, but he's also not dumb enough to lead with all of the explicitly abhorrent stuff that comes along with it. Because I think what Hannah said is right. He's perhaps not in the same exact category as someone like Lucas Gage, even if they may have some overlapping interests.
To me, I call him the white power Ian Miles Cheong.
I was told by a source that apparently Jeff had attended a dinner organized by Cremo and some others. If you're familiar with Cremo and race science and his whole thing, he is pretty big also on X and is much more of a what they call themselves scientific racists or
Right.
race realists or human biodiversity types or whatever, kind of just trying to rehash eugenics. I think there could be potentially some interlinkages behind the scenes across, some of these major influencers who may or may not be intellectual in definition, but at least style themselves as such.
We've kind of laid the groundwork here about who he is and what his vibe is. But, that is Captive Dreamer, the persona. Stephen, who is Captive Dreamer, the person, and how did you find that out?
Captive Dreamer came on our radar like many others' radars due to his role in the Haitian panic around Springfield during the election, in the run up to the election. And we started to take a pretty close look at the guy and try to figure out, okay, who exactly this is. And a big break came when I got a tip, and I'll actually give credit to the person who gave me the tip because I want that. It was Will Stansel, who I know is somewhat of a controversial person and left Twitter or left Blue Sky or whatever. Will had apparently been in these feuds with Captive Dreamer on and off, and figured out that Captive Dreamer's Substack had a bit of a vulnerability. So if you pay to become a Substack subscriber and you go on Substack, you can click through and see the invoices and receipts. And one of those versions does not include any information about, the person's account that you're subscribing to. But another version of those, one of the options that you can look at will actually reveal the email that is associated with the payment processor for that account. And so that was really the first major thing that allowed us to start piecing together this person's background. So with that email, we were then able to run that email up against, a number of other tools and databases and cross-reference it. And that resulted in getting some names and maybe even some locations. And from there, it was a process of following those names and those email addresses and figuring out, what this person has done and what their background is. And so a part of that was that we got led to a style forum, somewhat cringe menswear forum. So this menswear forum is a pretty prolific poster on the menswear forum. And that account actually gave us further information, like, his association with Vancouver and the Northwest and some of his other locations that he had spent time in. And from there, we were able to start really digging into, okay, well, this person said they had graduated from college at around a certain time and so on and so forth. So it was a process of kind of doing a backwards reconstruction of, all the biographical details we could figure out. And that was really helpful because it then led us to graduation records. And we were able to find that there were Jeff Martins who had graduated from a particular university in that area around the time when he had posted about graduating. And so it was a continual process, kind of, snowballing, one thing leading to the other. And then eventually we were able to find photos of the person and his family members, very specific things that we were then able to cross-reference with posts that he had made online, specifically posts about, he had attended a wedding for one of his relatives, his brothers, at a very specific place.
So did you do that with Facebook? I'm just curious, because you don't have to include anything in it, but the guys can be like super good at covering their tracks online, but it's impossible to rein in your entire family, especially when you're being like a secret Nazi poster or whatever, right? So that's really interesting that you're able to find it that way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was really how we were able to get some real solid confirmation. And we also got photos from his graduation. There's some stuff on Instagram. So to your point, as good as any one person can be, the more connections that you have with other people, the more vulnerabilities there are in your shield. And if you're hiding your views from your family or you're not able to explain to them why they should delete all the photos of you off of their social media, that's exceedingly difficult. And so, it was a process of basically, kind of like the stereotypical string connecting points on a board. We were trying to cross-reference as many things as possible until we really narrowed it down to just one possible person.
He definitely looks, when you saw the picture, I'm sure you're like, oh yeah, that's the guy. He definitely looks like he definitely looks like a guy who who sits all over X all day posting racist bullshit. He's like every picture that you show of him, it's just dour, miserable, like looks like he's never seen a sunny day in his life. Like just they always just have that vibe.
Right. And, a lot of this stuff ended up coming to us by way of self-disclosure. So he had posted about, having attended college and then, saying, oh, the last time I was on the University of British Columbia campus, it was probably 80 to 90% non-white. How bleak.
Nice post, dummy. That's a nice post, stupid. They always like that. These guys always want to give away, they always want to give away who they are in the end. It's almost like serial killers or something like that, where, I know posting is not the same thing, but it's the same type of thing where it's they all kind of want to get caught eventually. They all want you, especially as they become more and more successful. Right. And this guy's been pretty successful. Like he's had a lot of high profile, murders online as the Haitian thing. And now most recently the stuff around Abreu Garcia. Right. Where, he's able to just get it. Some dumb bullshit he cooks up. He's able to get it in the mouth of a president.
So I want to hit pause and rewind to something you said, Stephen. So this guy, Captive Dreamer, operates in the pro-Trump X space. But you said Vancouver.
Yeah,
that's Canada. Is he? He's Canadian.
So his whole family has roots in Canada, and his father is the president of a relatively well-known Christian university.
Oh yeah,
Trinity Western University, which is it's been described to me as the Liberty University of Canada.
Oh, that makes sense, doesn't it?
But in Canada.
He also has claimed to be a dual citizen, and I actually think there's truth in that. There's a person in the Washington state voter rolls that appears to be him. And so I think he has dual citizenship. He's posted about dual citizenship in the past, but his family's still in Canada. And 2 days after our investigation was published, his father released a statement through Trinity Western University, saying he condemns white supremacy. And, he mentioned basically that, it's been spread on social media and he doesn't support it. They don't stand for anything like that. But he did not say why he released the statement, nor did he mention his son. And the university never confirmed, that the allegations are connected directly to the president. They've said, we're aware of these allegations about a social media account that is not connected to the university. But it turns out actually Jeff used to work at the university in the past. No longer, but he did in the past.
What do we know about his personal life? What kind of details do we have about this guy?
I could share a few things. Some sources had reached out to me describing having previously worked with him in restaurants. And according to them, he had already been radicalized towards this stuff at that point in time. So it's not like it was in just the past 4 years, in which he had gravitated towards, quoting Hitler on the internet. Beyond that, it's hard to say. There's not a lot of personal details out there about the guy, and not a ton of people who are super close to him have contacted us, or, we weren't able to get into contact with them. But, his background was in classics. That's what he studied in college, and he had won a translation prize. So, presumably around that time, he might have started reading more and more fascist texts and, become obsessed with that or become really interested in it, and has, made that now his calling to translate those, and then also be kind of a public intellectual, quote unquote, with regard to that ideology. And that's as much as we can make of it. I mean, he appears to be making money off of Twitter. He appears to be making money off of his Substack. He's married to someone who has a job in a tech company, so maybe he doesn't even have to be the breadwinner for his family. And that's a funny aside for someone who is promoting this kind of traditionalist mindset and all these politics that are associated with it.
My wife pays for the internet that I use to post on X.
But what we can say is that he definitely is like a wannabe men's fashion dude, and, has a penchant for Barber jackets and all that sort of stuff. And that's been the case for a while. So it seems like at the very least, he's had that sort of spending money to to acquire nice clothes and nice shoes and has developed some sort of taste for that. I don't necessarily know if he's executing it well based on the photos that we've seen of him. But nonetheless, that is what we know about the guy.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's like, the posting style is so macho, and just like the reality is just kind of like he's just this guy. Hannah, you had some thoughts on his original Substack name, and also just like I'm just like curious, like what do you think of a sort of fascist activist, a neo-fascist, whatever it might be, who only posts, who like doesn't do anything in the real world? It's like what is the place of something like this?
I'm going to answer the second part first, and then the first part second. To the second point regarding the fact that he only posts, I mean, that is very much a lot of the movement now. And I think this is also part of like the factor that they're so tied in with Trump and they're so centered around Trump, is that all of the in-person activity with regards to the movement is just happening around Trump. There's like, Blood Tribe goes off and does their marches in Springfield or something. And JP, the National Justice Party, used to like periodically do some small events, and there was whatever the fuck just happened in Texas with Jake Lane. But for the most part, like really the right is around Trump, and that's when all of the in-person organizing happens. So I think the fact that he's basically just on posting is like kind of indicative of the fact that there's not really much to do beyond. There's no real like dissident right. It's basically just the same mush now within various gradations of extreme or radical beliefs. And that's his role in it. He's a poster. He is a beta soy boy cuck poster who's supported by his wife to post on the internet about how great Trump is. Not that there's anything wrong with beta cuck soy boys, but
there's something wrong in his world, though.
There's something wrong with his world,
not in our world. Where we can be as beta, and this whole podcast is just two beta boys making a podcast. I'm just kidding,
which
Jared.
is great.
I'm just
Jared's face does not look thrilled. But like, it's this fake machismo thing, and you find it from these guys like on X right now, where it's these guys who are just acting all big and tough on there because they can get a bunch of likes because they paid the website to get a bunch of likes, and that's it. That's him. Back to his Substack name, and actually his original account name. He named it after Russian Cosmism, which is this like philosophical and cultural movement that was around in like the 19th and 20th century, still is around today, and has taken on some kind of weird nationalist overtones. But it's not really fashy. It's like this. The way to kind of think about it is it's a sort of blend of Russian Orthodoxy and futurism, in the sense of its major proponents were figures who basically wanted to bring the resurrection for everyone, to defeat death for everyone, not just Russians. And that's what he chose as his Substack name.
I wish he stuck to that.
About Hitler.
I wish he stuck to that.
I do too. I love Cosmism.
And then another one of his prior accounts, he's had a bunch of X accounts that have been banned. I mean, he's had Hispanic Cosmist for one. Another one, which is interesting, was Stefan George 77, which presumably is in a reference to Stefan Anton George, which was
Jesus, this is pretentious.
German symbolist poet who had some relationship with fascism in the Nazi Party, but was not necessarily a, chief intellectual of it, or, entirely aligned with it. That combined with the captive dreamer thing, he's kind of operating around the edges of it, because I don't think we have yet to explain actually what that name is, because captive dreamer is a reference to a book that was written by a French, son of aristocrats who late in World War II, when the Vichy regime seemed to be about to fall and the Nazis were losing, this French guy joined the, Nazis. Basically, he joined like an SS unit that were all Frenchmen, and thought that was the time to start fighting against the communist menace. that was about to descend upon them. So
It's extraordinarily pretentious.
Be a smarty, join the Nazi party.
very deep cuts.
Steven, I have a question. You said he had multiple accounts before Captive Dreamer. Is there any kind of like arc to his posting? Were you able to find old posts or even just older posts on his current account? Like did he radicalize, or was he kind of like this out the gate? Are you able to say?
As far as we can tell, based on the archive posts we were able to review, he's been this way for a while. And actually, the arc is maybe in the direction you wouldn't expect, where some of the prior posts were a little more explicit in their tone. And
Like washed his face, combed his hair kind of thing?
yeah, and decided, instead of wearing that on his sleeve, you take the band off your sleeve and you put on a suit, and you maybe have a little button that only the real heads know what that symbol means. That's kind of how I would think about it. He changed his approach so that it would be more palatable, so that if his posts are quoted in the New York Post, it's not as obvious that he's, pushing this sort of ideology.
And they were quoted in the New York Post, weren't they?
That is exactly why I said that.
Tell me about that.
Oh, it was the recent MS-13 thing that he was suggesting around. I'm going to not say his name correctly, but
Abreu Garcia.
yeah. So Garcia, and he had claimed that this photo with the hand tattoo, he spelled out what the symbols are all supposed to mean, and the sort of decoding of that. And that was just taken, I guess, somewhat at face value, and then repeated, or even if it was viewed critically, it was still amplified to, countless people,
including the President of the United States. The New York Post citation of Captive Dreamer was noted by Jesse Singal. There are too many people we have to do our deep dive episodes on. He's pretty low priority for me, but who knows? Maybe someday.
Singal is like Noam Chomsky on X now, like compared to the tone of the app.
Well, April 18th, he posted, New York Post runs an article suggesting the tattoos on Abrego's hands are a sign of MS-13 affiliation, using a tweet from Captive Dreamer, parentheses, an actual Nazi, as a source. Below that is an ICE source saying he doesn't recognize those symbols. And Captive Dreamer responded to Jesse, telling him that Nazis haven't been around since 1945. Which is a way to respond to that criticism, I suppose.
Yeah.
Also, not technically true.
Yeah, not.
Yeah. Thank you, Hannah. This is why we bring in the white nationalist expert onto the thing to make definitive statements like that's literally not true.
As far as I can tell, he's one of those people who sees there to be value in deconstructing the idea of what Nazism is, or suggesting it's no longer relevant or no longer a part of the political discourse, or that they don't exist, so that then some of the ideas that were part and parcel to their entire ideology can maybe be repackaged. That's kind of my read on not just him, but a number of other people who post.
I just met there are people who were literally part of the Nazi Party who are still alive.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That's also true. Yes. I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah. And it's also like, it kind of represents his whole posting style, which is just this snark, this, well, I'm not a Nazi, but maybe I am, which is hard to respect. Like, I would have much more respect if he just came forward with his racist opinions about Arabs and just said it, publicly, directly, face to face. But if you see him, like, also when he shows up and like in his videos now, when he does videos, he seems like very meek and very, daunted. He seems daunted is the way I would describe it. He just doesn't seem like a very confident Nazi to me. And that's perfect. That's a perfect example, right? Where you come in, it's like, oh, well, actually, the Nazis haven't existed since 1945. So,
yeah, it's posting hard about being a Nazi. And I'll play a clip of a video that he uploaded with his face and voice after Steven's reporting came out, and sort of ripped that Band-Aid off. And you would think the way that he posts written, it stands in contrast with the very just sort of like all right, guys, we're going to talk about something serious today, like C-rate podcaster, and I'm saying that as, it takes one to know one, and I'm saying that's what it is. He could be the third mic on this show.
Let's get him on, actually.
Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to put on our serious political punditry hat and talk about an issue that has kind of been flaring up for a long time. In the background, it really flared up around Christmas, around this sort of H-1B battle with between sort of the populist right and this nascent tech right, these people trying to sort of latch onto the coattails of the MAGA movement. I imagine I'll do a few videos.
So, kind of zooming out a little bit, we've looked at this one particular insufferable guy. And if I can put in a request, Stephen, if you can get this guy coddled, affluent professional who uses the Pete Buttigieg avatar, if anybody can get that, that is the bounty I'm putting. I would love to find out who that guy is. What a like a little, whiny little account that is. But yeah, looking now at X just in general, it's, to me, my thought about it is whereas, on Twitter, on the original Twitter era, when it was broken up between Twitter, 4chan, Gab, where all these kind of pro-Trump white supremacist accounts, or even like white supremacist accounts that were critical of Trumpism, of which there were many, by the way, unlike now, when I look at it now, it almost just seems like just this app, the Everything app, is really just an everything app for glazing Trump, right? Like, it's really just about that. Like, it just seems like all the racist things you say, all the dehumanizing things you say, or even the anti-Semitic things that get said, although that's getting more challenging now considering all the sort of task force on anti-Semitism stuff that Trump is doing. Like, pretty much almost everything he's doing is really just in service of Trumpism. And that's just basically what I see. And that's why I think this Captain Dreamer guy is basically, emblematic of that whole way of posting, that whole character. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are, Hannah.
What's kind of fascinating about it is it's still relevant in the sense that I've had tweets that keep getting periodically picked up by like news organizations of like, here's random internet commentator. Okay, well, they're quoting me about extremism usually, so that maybe not random internet commentator, but regardless, stuff still gets picked up. So there's people who are like looking at the website, and there are normal people on the website. But yeah, like a lot of it really does kind of just feel like the stuff that gets traction on there is extreme material that is very pro-Trump. Like, if you go on there and you're anti-Trump and you want to talk about National Socialism, you're not going to get as much traction. But if you go on there and you want to talk about National Socialism, but with Trumpian characteristics, as it were, then maybe you'll get somewhere. The thing that have found really fascinating about it, though, is the shift from text and kind of links to just images. There seem to be a lot of accounts that will post screenshots of 4chan posts, screenshots of headlines, various AI videos, various AI photos, things like that. And they will only
slop.
be...
I believe the word is slop.
It's totally slop. And there's no links. I mean, X has always downplayed links. I mean, this was the bane of my existence as a social media manager many years ago, and it has only gotten worse from there. But they really have downgraded links to the point that you do have to post images that way. But like, these are accounts that will not then follow up with the link. So all you're doing is you're stuck in this vat looking at slop, and it's this monoculture of slop.
Slop, right? Two accounts we didn't get to that traffic in that type of stuff. Jared, are Rothmus, I believe it's called. This is a very X-centric character who basically just posts like the laugh cry emoji with like some sort of like completely stupid meme. Musk like kind of pumps him out, and then there's the other one, Declaration of Memes, where it's just sort of like it's really Dems are the real racists, basically, is the subtext of it, which is also the name of an obscure white supremacist account.
That's a very important account. That's a very important account.
It's a very important account.
To us personally, but maybe not anyone else.
And Jared, yeah, just curious about your thoughts.
I think it is, I don't know, what's been interesting to me is that as far as how the site functions, even as it changes in ways that completely degrade and in some cases destroy the user experience, it is hard to navigate. The search bar is really hit or miss. The For You feed is a mess. If you are not a Trump poster and posting about politics, it is like trying to break out of containment. And like you said, Hannah, even more so than before, external links are throttled aggressively. So it's like not even, if you're a journalist or a researcher or whatever, it's not even a great place to post about your work anymore. Try to like get eyeballs on things that you write.
Or even use for research. Like if you're trying to make contact for, for sources and stuff like that, you got to worry about how public those DMs are to the people who run the site.
Well, you also can't DM people.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You're
You're sort of like, I forgot about it. I haven't used it in a while.
Yeah, I barely use it.
But Twitter had like gotten so big before that happened that even though I feel like the website has lost a lot of its cultural capital, some of its political capital, some of its news media capital, it's still the most influential in those departments. Alternatives like Blue Sky, I know I use both. I use Blue Sky a lot more. I enjoy it more. It's annoying in its own unique ways, unique and beautiful ways, but it is not a competitor for X, right? It just simply put, it is what it is, right? But so I think, to me at least, that makes the sort of rotting core of the platform interesting, not only in like a horrifying, shocking way to watch, but also just sort of an interesting way to watch, because it still has this grip on a part of society, particularly like politics and news. But it's just like, it's hard to describe. It's like a fruit bowl. The fruit is rotting, but it's still like the fruit bowl. So you have, people are still rummaging around trying to find something that's like still okay to eat. But I don't know. I just the way the internet has consolidated over the last decade into these central nodes, Twitter, now
it's
X
still the place where I get like sports memes and stuff like that sent to me, right? So
I'm just curious, like if it could ever die short of going offline, and if it continues to rot and hollow out the way that it has, we may not even fully understand the reverberant effects of that for many years to come. I don't know. It's just it's like kind of fascinating, but also horrible.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why Musk really wanted to get his hands on Twitter and others was the simple fact that not only was it a relatively influential platform, but it was specifically known to be the platform where the media, broadly speaking, spent their time, communicated with each other, shared stories, promoted their stuff, which consequently meant that stories came out of Twitter quite often. There's this two-way relationship there. And not every journalist has left. A lot of journalists have left. A lot of news organizations don't really use it anymore. So in that regard, at least, I think there's been a downgrade in its significance. And there's also been an apparent increase in bot activity and stuff. So there may never be an end to it, but it may go increasingly towards a place that could be characterized by like the dead internet theory, where it seems very, very active, but it's a lot of people and fake people kind of screaming into this void that may not have many reverberations outside of it. But I mean, still to this day, we have not gotten to the point where Twitter has been entirely dethroned as the de facto media tool. I still DM with people there. I still obviously retweet things. The value of it and the utility of it is gone way down. But that brief moment in time when it seemed like a lot of outlets would totally back away from it has passed, and plenty have gotten right back to it.
We've been talking a lot about X, formerly Twitter, a few of its people, and where it is in the world today. Lots covered here. I want to thank Stephen and Hannah for joining us on this episode. Mike.
Yeah, Stephen, where can we find your work? Where's the place to follow you?
You can find me on X, but you probably won't hear from me much. You can find me on Blue Sky, and my reporting is often in the Texas Observer, sometimes the Daily Dot, as was the Captive Dreamer story, and others. So if you check out either of my profiles, there's a link in my bio that will take you to a place where you can see all of my reporting consolidated into one site.
I just want to say the Daily Dot does some really good weird reporting, and I would say I just wrote a feature for them, and like it was a lot of fun. They're really open, not like the editing was very very positive. That's what I would say. Like it's a nice place to do a story now. Hannah, and where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, the only safe social media platform in this day and age or current year. No, I'm kidding. I am on Blue Sky at hannahgaze.bluesky, whatever the hell it is. And I'm also on X, and Mike judges me for it, but that's fine.
I do miss the X handles, as opposed to Blue Sky, where it's like, it's just like BKSY dot, like, and it's just too broken. My brain is not good enough to like memorize whatever that is. So, I just prefer when it used to be at Michael E. Hayden. Anyway, thanks everybody. This was an awesome episode. I really appreciate having you guys on here.
Jesus did